Founded on the double standard. That's our history. We were founded on a very basic double standard. This country was founded by slave owners who wanted to be free. Am I right? A group of slave owners who wanted to be free. So they killed a lot of white English people in order to continue owning their black African people so they could wipe out the rest of the red Indian people and move west and steal the rest of the land from the brown Mexican people, giving them a place to take off and drop their nuclear weapons on the yellow Japanese people.
So the Trump administration wanted to put out some propaganda regarding slavery, of all things. And so they created this 1776 commission to investigate how the issues of slavery or fixing the historical myths of our past is hurting us, hurting society. So this was the headline today. It said the White House shares its final report from the 1776 Commission, which states that the founding fathers' slave ownership has done enormous damage and has had a devastating effect on our civic unity and social fabric. Of course, that's criticism of it, right? So people who are criticizing the fact that we've had slavery in this country since the beginning of the country and how this is, is not a great thing, right? So this was some of the report here. It said, well, first of all, this was a press release, right? It said, the 1776 Commission, comprised of America's most distinguished scholars and historians, has released a report saying blah, 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 blah. A rebuttal of reckless re-education attempts that seek to reframe American history around the idea that the United States is not an exceptional country, but an evil one. So, of course, I mean, that statement is filled with propaganda right away. But you know what else I find really interesting about this whole concept of re-education is the fact that this mythos surrounding American exceptionalism is not what holds and binds our country together. Like, we don't need to lie to each other in order to have one unifying narrative. We don't have to pretend like certain things in our past or even certain things in our present are perfect. And the founding fathers weren't perfect. We all know this, right? So anyway, Twitter is having a hell of a time. It's like, now, yes, there was some slavery, but, it was just a little bit of slavery. No, it was like, no, we had slavery in this country and the founding fathers went along with it. And you can say whether or not they went along with slavery for a good reason for them, but it wasn't a good reason for slaves. George Washington owned slaves, Thomas Jefferson. So like the founding fathers were slave owners, and they weren't some bastion of democracy, how the myth surrounding the founding fathers really is. No, I mean, they weren't some bastion. They were looking out for rich landowners in America. They weren't looking out for like some like greater good of the American people or some crap like that. So the whole thing, the re-education of Americans is how we have been teaching our own history about America, which is the funny thing, right? So if they did commission the best scholars and historians to do some sort of report about our founding, that's probably what they would come up with. I mean, if they had some honest people, they would probably say, listen, no. We have been telling a false narrative for a very long time for propaganda reasons, right? And so I love reading some of these comments on here. Let's take a listen to George Carlin.
Founded on the double standard. That's our history. We were founded on a very basic double standard. This country was founded by slave owners who wanted to be free. Am I right? A group of slave owners who wanted to be free. So they killed a lot of white English people in order to continue owning their black African people so they could wipe out the rest of the red Indian people and move west and steal the rest of the land from the brown Mexican people, giving them a place to take off and drop their nuclear weapons on the yellow Japanese people.
So, that is more, that summarizes the truth more than anything else. That right there, George Carlin just summarized the history of America. Okay, and that's not a new thing. I mean, this was probably like 20 years ago, 20, 30 years. Like, we've known the truth for a long time, but we keep pretending like the truth isn't real. We all do. Even I do sometimes. Like, even when I think back on the founding of America, I don't think about it the way it really is. I don't want to go into too much detail, but, when I was young, of course, I learned everything from the history that they taught me when I was young. And they said, oh, we fought against the British. It was a noble. Even the Lexington and Concord thing. Like, the Americans fired first. The Americans kind of started the war with the Brit. Like, when you actually research if we were to go back and do a real 1776 commission, we would discover so much gray area in all of this stuff, and some things which are evil about ourselves. Some things about slavery that is evil. Some things about capitalism. Or free markets that are evil, right? But that's not really the history that some politicians want to tell, though. But we could tell the history the way it is without having to damage society or something like that. We could make society, God forbid, a better place by just telling the truth to each other. So, let's take a look at this tweet. This tweet says, here, let me pull this up some. The civil rights movement was almost immediately turned to programs that ran counter to the lofty ideals of the founders. The ideas that drove this change have been growing in America for decades, and they distorted many areas of policy in the half century that followed. Among the distortions was the abandonment of non-discrimination and equal opportunity in favor of groups' rights, unlike those advanced by Calhoun and his followers. So this tweet says, that bizarre mishmash of individuals in Trump's plan for the kick-ass garden of patriotic action figures makes more sense once you see that his 1776 report presents MLK Jr. as the ideological heir of John C. Calhoun. So this whole history is insane. I mean, they're being disingenuous. This commission is a joke. Nobody should take it seriously. But I do think that it actually gives us a little bit of breathing space to revisit what we think about the American Revolution, what we think about the founding of the country, what we think about the genocide that took place as regards to the Native Americans in this country. I mean, more and more we're having these conversations as Americans, and that can allow healing. That can allow us to heal from the damage and the pain of slavery, and it can also allow us to kind of exorcise those demons that many Americans still possess, that demon of guilt. Because, hey, listen, the natives were slaughtered. The natives were abused. African Americans were enslaved. Asian Americans were enslaved and put to work on the railroads in San Francisco. You know, I mean, if we want to get really deep into it, immigrants were mistreated very badly. The Irish was mistreated. The Polish was mistreated. So, but by recognizing the mistreatment, by recognizing the evil, that's the way to heal. That's the way to move forward. It's not by covering up and pretending it didn't happen and pretending like everything was noble and rosy. That's not the way to do things, in my humble opinion. But let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what your opinion what your opinions are of this 1776 report. Jesus Christ. This is one more excerpt from this. It says, the most common charge leveled against the founders, and hence against our country itself, is that they were hypocrites who didn't believe in their stated principles, and therefore the country they built rests on a lie. This charge is untrue and has done enormous damage, especially in recent years. Really? Many Americans labor under the illusion that slavery was somehow uniquely American evil. No, I don't think so. It is essential to insist that at the outset that the institution be seen in a much broader perspective. The fact of the matter is, the founders, even when they were writing the Constitution, fell out with one another. You know, the Carolina delegation, the Southern delegation, they were going to pull out if John Adams and the rest of the founding fathers insisted upon removing slavery. So the country wasn't even going to be conceived. I mean, you know, with the U.S. Constitution, unless slavery was maintained. So now I don't want to look. That's why I said it. There's a lot of gray area here, but it is clear that John Adams knew he was a hypocrite when he decided to accept the compromise to allow slavery to exist in the United States. He was being hypocritical. Okay, Thomas Jefferson was being hypocritical when he penned the Declaration of Independence that all men are endowed with rights from God, and then he owned slaves. This is hypocritical. This is not some, oh man, but you don't understand. But you know, they had slaves in Europe. That's what you don't understand. They had slaves over here. That's what you don't understand. That's ridiculous. So anyway, I mean, so first of all, it's obvious clear that this is a joke. This is not like some serious academic endeavor. And I hope everybody realizes that, but who knows? I mean, there's a lot of people that will probably be fooled by this because it's written down. They'll probably think it has value of some sort. Like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think. I'm out.